larceny, almost a 40% increase in other areas. This has become disturbing, what we're seeing across our great American cities. New York City was a beacon of light for so many people. Immigrants came from all over the world to settle there, and now immigrants from all over the world are scared to visit there. This is so disturbing. Not to mention the fact with this bail reform that took place in 2020, the one that took effect in 2020, is really allowing criminals to go in and out of the system. Judges have less discretion when it comes to what amounts they can put on in terms of bail. And you see 10 a report from the New York Post where 10 suspects, 10 people who were charged with crimes, committed almost 500 crimes since bail reform took effect. So she really needs to look in her own backyard clearly before making comments, which I know is all about the state of New York, but certainly across the country, because
here we are.
And the city is seeing just outrageous increases.
Got all my little buttons set. I tell you what, it's like flying an airplane, except when not flying an airplane. So we're all set to go here. How are you guys out there today, Thursday at 11:36 a.m.? Hopefully the sound is stronger than it's been. And we have a little background with the Fox News. Got to keep up to date on what's going on. That's up here. And let's just turn down that brightness a little bit so you can see it. Let me get this out of the way. So I got one more thing to do. Be nice if I plugged in my headphones. This way we could hear what is going on here in downtown Boca Raton, which is about 85 degrees outside. This is the right side. I got a double loop around my, what you call it here. There we go.
Mr. Biden's speech was an exercise in damage control, not crime control. Because, Gianno, can you point to any one policy that has been implemented?
There we go. I can hear everybody properly. Got my headphones on.
No, they don't want to mention that. I mean, we talked about this just yesterday. Democrats and this across the country, they believe that college is the way to get elected and the way to stay elected. And we've seen that demonstrated time and time again. You look at Kamala Harris.
Okay, here we go. So, it's incredible what's going on here. It's very difficult to follow, what's going on with this presidential stuff, and the fact that some of the democratically leaning operatives within the Justice Department have decided to raid. You can't believe it. They raided the president's personal residence in Largo. That's crazy. Go think. The first time in American history, the Biden administration, there's no other way of looking at it, decided to raid the personal residence of the former United States of America. I mean, that's where we've come. I'm trying to cut down on the modulation so that we don't over-modulate. And my should be modulating right now. Kind of have a little I have a little watchdog right here.
House Republican Whip Steve Scalise sounding off on this, tweeting, quote, "This is what
I
Democrats
can move that slider over.
nationwide."
Whoops.
You
I
know,
keep on forgetting that
stand
thing.
on this issue. What we're seeing
That's the,
is the party continuing to move this
oops,
direction.
down here.
The market can't support it.
That the MacBook doesn't have. There you go. That's better. No touchscreen. I keep on touching it and it ain't going anywhere. You know, I'm so used to the iPads with the touchscreen. And MacBook Pro, no touchscreen. Crazy. And they say they'll never have a touchscreen, which is ridiculous. You know, this slippy slidey with an arrow is, oops, sorry, is very annoying. If you diddle with this thing, it doesn't like it. You got to leave it alone. It's, you know, it's all mounted on a thing here. I've got all these. What the hell is this thing doing? I guess that's supposed to be tightening up the cable. All right. So I think we're in good shape now. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'm taking a look at Flipboard here, which you can see it right here. And
plus, there will likely be more than this when the president speaks tonight.
I can get it on this side of the screen.
Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. Let me tell you,
there it is.
Ultra MAGA agenda is extreme, as most MAGA things are.
Knives. Gotta sharpen your knives. Yeah.
Checking Republicans from the briefing room podium, Mark Thiessen has got some strong thoughts on this. He'll join us next.
I don't know. So, you know, Apple has these little $half size. Maybe they're this size. Maybe they're silver dollar size. I think that's, yeah, this is like 32 millimeters. And I think that what you call is from Apple. They send out a signal. So on your iPhone or your iPad, and maybe your Mac, you can see objects like one of these doodads. So, so it's like a tracking thing. So you register it as a special number. So you sync it with your device, with your Apple system. So, and then you can put it on your key ring so to keep tracks of where your keys are. It has a thickness, so I don't think it wouldn't fit my wallet very well. But yeah, it was, I think, a Hollywood couple that were in a divorce situation. And I'm kind of making this part of the story up, so it's fictional. So you got husband and wife. They're getting divorced. And, of course, husband is interested if wife is fooling around. And if she's fooling around, you know, that'll be evidence in the court that she is like, responsible for this for this divorce. I'm the good guy, and she is the terrible. Oh God! Sorry. There we go. So she's the terrible person that's fooling around. So what fictional guy did is he slipped one of these things in her purse. You know, it's something that you just slide in somewhere, you know, in a pocket that's inside the, you know, the woman's purse has all kinds of little thingies. Or just throw it in the bottom because there's so much crap in a woman's purse that, you know, you get a little silver dollar thing inside. So this way, you know, you can track where she's going, you know. And if she has luggage, yeah, you just slip one of these things in the luggage. So you keep track of the luggage. So this guy's tracking his wife. Well, she's gallivanting around, you know, either driving, you know, you can slip it in the side pocket of a car and you can track the car. You know, you know, we have a Tesla. So if you got the Tesla app, you can track the car because the Tesla app shows you exactly where the car is. So here's my trusty iPhone. So let's take a look at the Tesla app. There's the Tesla app, which you can see. And I can see where it is. It's 2300 Glades Road. And there's exactly where it is. Oh, my Lord. You turn on the brightness because the camera is so... this camera is so sensitive to, you know, the brightness of these devices. So you can see here, I can see exactly where she is. You can't even see what parking spot she's in. Oh my goodness, it's the fourth spot. I mean, I dropped her off one time and I said, "Don't you park your car usually right there?" Yeah. She said, "Yeah, I usually park right there, about the fourth spot over." You know, you kind of get used to where you want to put your car. So then she just, you know, walks around, and I think I can even see it on here. Let's look at it on this one. So here's the car. There it is. So I can see it on my iPad. You can see it. So she just parks there and then just walks. There's a door right here. There's the front door. And then there's like the back door. This is facing Glades. Here's Glades Road. Right here. Glades. Butts. So we come out west on Glades and then go this way and then pull right in on this way and go right in there. And you can see Marilyn is parked right there. Otherwise, see, and then you can just back up the map and you can see in relation, you know, to where the Boca Airport is, Boca Raton. The blue dot. I'm actually looking at it on the wrong thing. I should really do it here. We're going to play with the Tesla app for a second. I'll put my phone back up here. There we go. That's what we want to see. So now, there we go. So let's do that again. So there it is. You can see her car. This is a gas station. Glades Road, Butts Road. Pull right in here and drive right in there. And she's in the 1, 2, 3. She's like in the 5th parking space. And you can see it. That's crazy, huh? I can go back. This is the Tesla app. So you can see she's got 134 miles left See up on the top here, inner fuel tank, battery, whatever. There's controls. We can actually turn on the air conditioner of our car right now, which I'm not going to do. The interior temperature we can see is 98 degrees. You can see that right there, which says climate. And cabin temperature. We have cabin overheat protection, which means the car starts to ventilate itself if by some chance it gets, over 100 degrees inside the car. Now, at 5 o'clock, you see schedule here. At 5 o'clock, the car will be preconditioned by 5 o'clock so that it is 62 degrees inside the cabin when she walks out the door at 5 o'clock. So when she gets in the car, instead of having this whoosh, 130 degree air splashing your face, and oh my God, you're already hot because you walked to the car, you've been in air conditioning the whole day. So now she can walk, she opens the door and this cool air comes out. You sit back in, the seating is all nice and cold. Instead of sitting on a 130 degree leather seat, it's cooled to 62 degrees because it's been that way for about 10 minutes. Now, it costs a couple of miles in range, but, the engine doesn't run because there's no engine. Remember, there are 2 electric motors, and they don't run until you get in there and take it out of park and put it in either reverse or drive. Then the motor starts to, the front and rear motors start to rotate, so forth. But the air conditioner has its own separate electric motor on the compressor. So when you do that climate thing, the electric motor on the compressor will fire up and cool the cabin down to 62 degrees. The internal fans are circulating the air. Very neat indeed. That's like a big feature when you're down here in Florida, and August is hot. September now. So, and through the app you can see there's software upgrades. Let's press that. Let's see what we can do. So if you want an extra boost of acceleration power, you push the button Add right here, and for a mere $2,000, you can have an extra boost of power for, during your lease term. And then if you're interested in having the enhanced autopilot, you push that button, and it's a mere $6,000, and wham, it hits your checkbook. Or you can buy it for $12,000. Yeah, let's get out of there. Now you can add full service driving on a subscription basis instead of paying $12K, which I think on September 5th it goes to $15K. For a mere $200 a month, you can add the full self-driving subscription, and it gives you all the features as if you paid $15,000, but you pay $200 a month. And if you do the math on the numbers, that's like 3-year financing. So it's $200 a month is better than $15,000 or $12,000 or $8,000 or whatever it is. But so I tried that for a couple of months, and the software is, they say it's beta baloney. It's not beta, it's alpha. I've been testing stuff my whole life. Testing bank portfolios, testing electronics, devices, in front of a classroom at FAU, whatever. in my desk usually, and I'm driving the software, and it's terrible. It's just not ready. And it's too aggressive. You need to have like a chill mode on the full self driving because I don't like it. It pulls up to an intersection and then it brakes, and you're almost shoved into the steering wheel. It just needs to be softened up a little bit. When it's coming to a stop, it needs to initiate the stop sequence earlier so that it is a little more comfortable for everybody in the car, including the person that's sort of driving. It's a level 2 form of full self-driving, so it's not self-driving. It's self-driving, and you have to be vigilant and actually be driving the car, and this is like a super duper cruise control, and it goes around the city streets and all that. It's capable of reading the map. If you have a course charted out, like when I take off from this where we live, I push the navigate to work, which takes basically Maryland to her 2300 Glades Road address. And it maps it out and it takes the best route. And with the self-driving feature, you push that button and it will take you, basically to a work location. And you got to have your hands on the wheel because if you take your hands off the wheel for more than 30 seconds, it'll give you a warning, and then the system will drop out. And it'll pull over to the side of the road if you don't have control of the steering wheel. And it can feel the fact that you're on the steering wheel because sensors in the steering wheel. I mean, there's sensors everywhere, The sensors under your butt is censored on the steering wheel. There's sensors up in the rear view mirror thing, keeping the camera's watching you, so that if you're not paying attention to where you're driving, the system will drop out. And it also records what it looks like in the rest of the cabin. So in the unlikely event, you get in an accident, there's a camera that'll be recording what's going on inside the cabin as the car's rolling over, whatever happened to you. So, plus it's got cameras all over outside. So if you get, a front or rear end collision, all the sensors around the car are activated at all times anyway, and it basically will record, how the accident happened and who hit who, instead of getting this stuff where it's my opinion versus someone else's opinion. The cameras don't lie. Those are facts. So, I like that. Everybody should like that. So, anyway, so that's the some of the features of the Tesla app. So Marilyn's car, it's coming on noon and 30 seconds or so. If you look on my Pumpkin Wagnall there, I can tell you exactly what. Okay. So we'll go here. Here's the clock. Yep, coming around to. We've got I guess a minute and a half, and then it will be noon. 9/1 noon. Yep, Thursday, September 1. September. That's unbelievable. So I think September 7th, a week from today, Apple is having its, let's get out of here, it's having its special display for the, what happened to this? There we go. There we go. Oh. The what do you call it was hanging on to the iPad. Yeah. Let's see. Try to go sideways a little bit. There you go. It's outnumbered. There we go. Look at it. Oh, there you go. Shape is good. You can see what's going on, some of the background noise, which I can turn up, turn down. And of course, then I can turn up this microphone so that I can whisper from this distance. And that little baby is extremely sensitive. I turn it right up there. And I don't have to be, I need to turn down a little bit because it's getting into the yellow too much and it's over-modulating. That's the last thing we want to do. So, anyway, so you got all this presidential stuff with the raid of the only the Democrats would raid the, this is a guy that's going to be running against the current president, right? And this guy's the former president. So what do? They raid his house. So they go through his underwear drawer. They go through Melania's underwear drawer, for God's sake. I mean, they're picking up everything. They even picked up his passports, for God's sakes, which is, there's so much of his personal property that should not be in the hands of the FBI. You're kidding? And they show up with what? 30 armed with machine guns drawn federal officers. Can you imagine? And thank God Trump wasn't there. I think they did it intentionally when he wasn't there. So they knew he was up in Bedminster, Maryland. So now they got 20 boxes of his stuff. Now, let me explain something to you. And the media doesn't really talk about this. When the president moved out of the White House, which, you got all your stuff over in the West Wing and this and that and that. And then, it's time to move because you lost the election. So, you're all flying around, giving interviews or whatever the heck's going on. And the GSA, the Government Services Administration, it's another agency, another 3-letter acronym. Literally, the GSA packs up, your personal stuff. They box it. They put a number on it, inventory it, and so forth. And the same thing with the White House office of the president. He's got his desk drawers and all his stuff. So they're packing all his crap, and they're putting it in the boxes. And, and everything's sealed and boxed. And, so they got these 15 boxes, and they get stored, under lock and key in the basement of Mar-a-Lago. Now, this was the president's house. So the Secret Service, is guarding his personal residence, with a detail of probably 7 people. Well, when you become a former president instead of the current president, they probably dropped the detail from the 8 people to 4 people. I'm making this up. I don't know what it is. But they continue to guard his residence because he's a former president. And he's got the 15 boxes of stuff in his basement. So, they have a lock and key on the door. It turns out during these periods where federal officers were, deciding, whether or not the other federal agency had, all the classified stuff and codes to missiles and, whatever, whatever stuff that the government says is their property. And of course, there's no fight there. So the GSA, and this other agency, they look at each other and they, sort through stuff, and the government walks off with the stuff that's theirs. And, the president moves down to Mar-a-Lago, and presumably they've already given over everything there is to give over. But doesn't matter. FBI comes in and raids his house, his personal residence in Florida, which is Mar-a-Lago. And they show up in 5 or 6, big black Suburbans. So when you got a chain full of, when you got 6 Suburbans lining up and driving through the middle of the president's campus, because there's a big, Mar-a-Lago's, a lot of buildings and things. It's a beautiful, used to be the C.W. Post estate. And when she died, she granted it to the state of Florida. So the state of Florida had Mar-a-Lago for a couple of years. And it determined that it cost them about $1 million a year to maintain it and, cut the grass and do the landscaping. So the state of Florida said, crap with this. I don't want to spend $1 million in upkeeps and be the proud owners of Mar-a-Lago, regardless of how gorgeous it is. So they put it up for sale. And, for $6 million, that was the starting bid. And if I'm remembering right, $6 million, $7 million, $7.5 million, $8 million. Do I hear $8.5 million? I don't know how that, where they're all sitting in a room with an auction. It could have been. I think it was like electronic and so forth. But I think, the highest bid was Trump. I think he put a bid in for $9.5 million, something like that. So bam, you're the proud owner of Mar-a-Lago. So he had to, write a check for $9 million or whatever it was. It was $9 to $9.5 million. I know it was something like that. It wasn't 10, and it wasn't 8. It was 9 something. And I don't think it was 900. I think it was a little above 9 million. And since he's a multi-billionaire, he had the ability, and he had already made arrangements so that he would have enough liquidity on hand so that if he was a successful bidder, bam, he's got, you got 24 hours to send the money or it goes to the next highest bidder. Well, he wanted it. When he paid $9 million for it, it was worth like $40 million. So he only paid 25% of you. If you had it appraised, it's $40 million estate. It's got all this beach, and it's on the intercoastal, and it's also on the beach, and it's got 40 or 50 acres or a lot of acres, right in the land between intercoastal and the beach. He paid $9 million. It was worth $40 million, maybe more. So it was still a 25% sale, even though he paid, 50% higher than the opening bid of $6 million. So even if it went for 10, 11, 12 million, you're still in a great position because of the appraised value. You can put it back on the market and make yourself a cool 20, 30 million. But no. He kept it because now it's worth 150 million. I mean, he bought it, a number of years ago, and then it became, his personal residence. It's a club. He converted it so he had private memberships for 200,000. He sold memberships for 200K. You get 200 people at 200K. That's a lot of money, and you got to pay over. So that money goes right in Mr. Trump's pocket, so to speak. So that's quite a value. There's no way he's giving up that one. It's a prize property. If he ever does give it up, it'll be a $200 million sale. But that ain't going to happen because a multi-billion-dollar guy doesn't need to give up a $200 million asset that he paid $9 million for. Oh my goodness, what a deal! If you have money, you can make money, but you got to have money. And so the question is, is he going to go for the election in November? 2 years from now. He is not going to, in my opinion, he's not going to say until, the United States population picks its senators, picks its House of Representative people. They're all, there's 535 elections going on. No, that's not true. A third of the Senate and 350 House of Representatives people. So there's 375 elections. 1/3 of the Senate and 100% of the House. House is voted in every 2 years. So there's 2 years. So in November, we got a big. It's not a presidential election cycle. It's a cycle between it. And this is a cycle supposedly Republicans pick up seats. And they don't need too many seats to then control Congress, the House of Representatives. Then the question is, what happens with the Senate? Now you got all these, Democrats saying, "Oh yeah, forget the red wave. It ain't going to happen because we're." Well, with all that BS, I was going to use a different word. With all that BS, stop, so to speak. It comes down to who's going to show up and vote. And, 9 times out of 10, in the between cycle, the party in power loses seats in the House and Senate 90% of the time. So are we going to be in the 90% of the time, or are we going to be on the 10% of the time? That is the question. So, on November 7th, it is something. It's September 1. So we got, 4, 8. We got 9 weeks to go. So, 9 weeks flies by pretty fast around here. Yeah, particularly at my age, the time just goes, faster. Anyway, so, remember, in the last election 2 years ago, they had all kinds of rigmarole and so forth. So, guess what Jimmy was? Jimmy is an authentic poll operator. So, and paid positions. So I've been through like 3 or 4, all day training sessions with the state of Florida and the county of Palm Beach, learning how to operate the DS200 voting machine tabulation scanners. So, depending on how you vote in your particular state and wherever you're at, you're in Florida, they have these big sheets that don't have any names or anything on it, but you go through, you got to flash your photo ID. You don't have a photo ID, you ain't voting. So, photo days like a driver's license, or if you don't drive, you get a state of Florida photo ID that doesn't say driver's license. It's just a photo ID, which you can use for every purpose. Like you'd give it to the TSA agent when you check in, when you're going to fly somewhere. You use it to get into the public libraries all over, and you can use it to vote because it's a photo ID. It's a state-issued photo ID that's good enough to function for voting, which is important. It's got your photo, it's got your signature, and your date of birth, and all kinds of stuff. Everything on there except a driver's license if you're not driving. One of my sons doesn't drive, so he has a photo ID instead of a driver's license. And, Marilyn and I both have a driver's license, so that's our photo ID. Anyway, so, with all this election fraud crap, I figured, you know what? I'm going to volunteer as a polling person. I'm over 18 and got an IQ over 100, I'm told. And I'm going to be watching. I'm kind of like going to be a poll watcher, but I'm actually part of the voting, staff. The state of Florida, Palm Beach County. So I'm operating the DS200, which is the scanning device that's used in Palm Beach County and other areas in the state of Florida. The governor, it's a whole, this whole voter fraud thing has infiltrated, the state like crazy. So they have to make sure all their equipment is, tuned up and not, vulnerable to hacking and all this stuff, and not vulnerable to schlemiels like myself to manipulate the vote. So the people up front that check the voter ID, and then, I'm familiar with the polling locations, and they have a whole row of people that, A through Z. They may have 4 or 5 different people simultaneously logging in people, checking their photo ID, verifying their signatures, and then they hand them a ballot and a slip of paper like a receipt. So then you go over to, these private little booths that are set up, and, 20 or 30 of them in your polling location. Like in my case, it's a public library. And then you vote. You fill in the circles for who you want. Governor, senators, whatever the election is. Your choice of president, so forth. And then when you're done, you take your ballot and you walk over to Jimmy. And Jimmy says, just slip it right in there. And there's a little slot, it's this wide, and then you as a voter slip it in that slot. I don't touch it. Now if you're a little old lady and say, oh, Jimmy, can you help me? Yeah, you can take it and put it in there. But generally, you don't touch it. You let the voter slip it in the DS200, and then I watch all the lights and buzzers to make sure that the ballot was scanned into the system properly. And it reads all the dots and tabulates it. And those numbers are stored inside each DS200. And, the county must have thousands of them. So in the polling location I was running, which is 4222, 4220, and 4250, they have different numbers. So if you're 4222, it goes in this scanner. And if you're in the other, because it was like 2 polls in one location. and if it was a 4-2, the other polling location, I forget the number, then it goes in a different TS200. So I ran two of the machines, you know, in the 2000 election. The 2022 primary, I took the training, but I chose not to, be in the polling location for the 16 hours. But I got trained again on the DS200, so that for the November election, which I had to go through the training again, it's just the statutory requirement and the Palm Beach County requirement. Sometime before the election in November, they're going to call me up and say, "Oh, it's time for training." So then I'm going to go in for training so that I can become viable for the 2022 November election. It's interesting. You have to get there at 5 a.m. and you don't get out of there until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So it's a long day. You're not allowed out of the polling location. So if you have drink and you have some food, you got to bring in your own bag of stuff. Because you're allowed to get a break, so you can go to the bathroom or just get out of there, and someone will take over your spot for 15 or 20 minutes while you go to the bathroom and tinkle or whatever you got to do. I think I took 2 breaks, on the last election. So in November, it's the same. So the machines haven't changed, and you keep getting trained on it, and it's pretty easy. It's not too complicated. They have a book, a 3-ring binder. I got it up here behind me. Let me see if I can. There it is. I'll just show it to you. I'll be right back. There it is. Okay. And it's a. Whoops. Sorry. Just banged into the microphone. You can see right here. Let me shut the door. A squeaky door. So see, poll worker training and procedure manual. And there it is. Yeah, election day and VSC manual. So there are 982,000 registered voters in Palm Beach County. So the poll worker oath. Anyway, the microphone's right in the way of part of this stuff. But this is a very detailed thingy-boob on how to operate. Let's see what I do. Here's the closing procedure. And this is what, got everybody in trouble. Or not everybody, but where there was trouble. Where they were saying that there was something wrong with the vote count, and they were arguing about. Okay, so you can see that. So congratulations to the Palm Beach County, because they put together, a nice thing that you can see. There's the previous one, effective 2/2020, and this is effective, August 2022. Here's the EVID system, which is, when you come in, you give them your driver's license, and it scans it. So it brings up all your information and verifies that you're right at the right polling location. Let me put this down here. you would be shocked. That probably 10% of the people that show up at the wrong place. And if they're showing up between work or before work, or they put time out of their day to get to a polling location, and oops, it's the wrong one, and they didn't know any better because they've always gone to this location, and it goes to redistricting and so forth. The polling locations can change, and I got ID cards. I think down here, which I have to give Maryland, which now all of a sudden we go to a precinct number 17, whatever, 1700 and something. So now you're going to put that in your wallet because that's your voter. That tells you what your polling location is. And then you can go to the Palm Beach County website and find out where the hell, polling location 1723 is. And it's probably not the downtown public library. It's probably something else. So anyway, we'll figure that out on November 7th. We got 5 weeks to figure that out. Now I'm going to go to another training session, so that may help. So it's interesting, I figured instead of just watching the news and finding out, what's going on in the polling location, and these people that are floating around in there doing tasks, I become part of the team and get the entire training so that, one day I could become the clerk. The clerk is the head person of a polling location. Now, I was like an assistant clerk. They didn't call me that, and I didn't get paid for that, but I did it because the clerk didn't show up, so they made the assistant clerk the clerk, and then they didn't have an assistant, and that person needed help, and I was it. And it took us until 9:30 at night to get the poll closed. And she said, "Oh, Jimmy, will you please come with me to help me? Because you got to turn in all your stuff." And in the 2020 election, they had a thing where you go to a certain location on campus at FAU, and that's where everything was dropped off, and you got you got your boxes of stuff out of the poll. And you got to turn them in. You don't leave them, in the public library. When you walk out of there, nothing is left behind. So this Kim, I think was her name, says, "Jimmy, please." I said, "Okay, I'll stay with you." So I rode with her and showed her, which way to turn and all that because she didn't know anything about an FAU campus. And I've been teaching there for like 20 years, so I know how to get in there and which turn to take and all that kind of stuff. So that saved her evening, or else she would have gone, had a nervous breakdown. I'm kind of kidding, but she wasn't prepared to, go to the polling location. I said, not to worry, I'll go with you. And I helped her check in all the boxes, which we stuffed in her trunk, and then we had to unload them. There were like 4 or 5 boxes, of unused ballots. And, it's, a ballot is like, I try to explain to everybody in there, look, a ballot is like $100 bill. Just pretend it's a $100 bill. If someone scribbles on it incorrectly, you don't tear it up because it's a $100 bill. You just put, an X on it, and you put it in, the defective ballot box. There's another name for it. I forget what they call it. But when a ballot is, loused up because of either the poll worker or because the voter, you can't erase spots. So you got to, circle in the spots. And if you do it incorrectly, Then you got to raise your hand. You got to go back up front. Oh, and you got to get a provisional ballot because now you've ruined the ballot that was given to you. And, you use your driver's license and you only get one ballot. Everyone votes once. So if you voted incorrectly, then you turn it back in. A poll worker would help you go back to the front, get out of your little booth thing, walk over with the poll worker, and then you turn your ballot in to the office location, which is, a polling table. And they take your ballot and they give you a provisional ballot. And then you do that correctly and turn it into Jimmy, sort of, and then you can place it through the scanner, the DS200. No one knows that except for poll workers, but and half the poll workers don't remember what the number is, but I remember almost everything. So when I go to training, it's kind of like, redundancy, but it's okay. They don't pay you for training, but it's at least 6 hours. And I got to drive up to West Palm Beach. So that's, round trip another hour and a half. So that's 7.5 hours. So it's almost an 8-hour day by the time you're back home after training. And then, of course, you're in the polling location for at least 14 hours. At 5 a.m., you got to get there at 5. And, I think you get the keys to your polling location at like 6. And you open it up, and then you start setting up your equipment between 6 and 7. 7 o'clock, the poll opens, and 7 a.m. people start to vote. So that's what happens. So the poll workers, however many have been assigned to a particular site, has an hour to get everything set up. And the people are supposed to be trained, so in an hour they can do that. And it's not most of the time. The problem is the poll workers don't show up on time. They're supposed to be there at 5. A lot of them don't show up until 6:05. So then they walk right in. After Jimmy and the clerk are setting up, the stuff, and the other polling workers, aren't doing their job. But anyway, so you get paid to be there the whole day, which is, 7 to 7 is 12 hours, 13, 14. So it's about 15 hours. So 15 hours, and then you add, so it's 22, 23, 24 hours. So, and they pay you at $250. Yeah, it's like $10 or $12 an hour. It's not, it's like there are dishwashers at McDonald's that make that. So Palm Beach County is not paying up, very much. And they wonder how come they only get a bunch of dummies to show up to be poll workers. It's because they just don't pay. Because, if you're lucky enough to get out in 12 hours, then you got the 6 or 8 for the training. So 12 and 8 is 20. So you got 20 hours. You divide it by 240. It's $10 an hour. And in all the restaurants, the dishwashers, which would be considered the lowest level job in a restaurant, they're getting paid $12 to $15 an hour, right? Well, poll workers are getting $10 to $11 an hour. And I don't know, what's going on with the supervisor elections, but, if you want to know why you're not getting a quality enough poll worker, is you're not paying. They increase that to $300 a person. And, the what do you call it? The head person, I was going to say the cashier, but that's a bank. The head poll worker is the clerk. So that person should get like $400. And that includes the training time and the 14 hours that the clerk is there. She's first in and last out, so she's probably there 14 hours, plus 6 is 20, and she gets $300. So yeah, it's $15 an hour. That's the head dog. Well, everybody should get that, and she should get 400 divided by 20, which is a little higher number. So I guess I could write a letter to the supervisor of elections so that she starts to think a little more worldly on the pay levels. It's terrible. And they're always complaining and wondering how come they don't get enough participation. Well, they're not paying. It's not complicated. Now, I'm willing to give up my time. I don't care if I get paid or not. But I'd rather get paid than not. But I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for the exercise of Jimmy educating myself so that I can educate the rest of my family on just what's going on in a polling location. And I'll know, from an official inside look. I got the manual. I've had the training on the machine I operate. And, I know how to open the place. I know how to close the place. I know where you deposit the ballots. And the last clerk that I was running with, in the 2020 election, she was tearing up ballots. I said, what the hell are you doing? She has a trash can full of throwing up ballots. I said, you can't tear up those ballots. Those are $100 bills. I said, you need to reach in the trash and put tape on them, where you tore them, and you got to turn them in because those are, destroyed ballots. But we've issued, the voter provisional ballot, and this is their other ballot, and you can't throw it away. You got to put it in the other box, and then you put a clip on them and count them, and you add up those to the ones that went through the machine. And if I got 1,000 of them, and you were given 1,050 ballots, you must have 50 in the trash can. So, but she didn't do it. She didn't want to do it. So we're going through the final numbers, and she's looking at the numbers, and I said, well, you got to be short on ballots, right? She said, yeah, I'm short. Well, you know what? Because they're in the trash. You're not allowed to trash them. Jesus. Now, they may not be counted, but you don't put them in the trash. The training, it just doesn't, they should say what I just said. You have to treat each ballot like a $100 bill. And it's a valuable piece of paper. A person is voting on it. If it doesn't, is Maryland. Oops. She was recognized at the Milwaukee Stadium. Look at that, Maryland, because her mother was a famous Milwaukee, whatever they called him, softball player. She played on the team, and they were champions. Maryland's mother was on a championship team, back 30 years ago, or more, 40 years ago. So she was recognized. Oops, that's a recipe. At the stadium, and there's Marilyn, sister, and that guy, I don't know who he is, but they're, right now they're on the jumbotron. So I can stop it. There we go. So that's what I saw it up there. I brought it here. So you can see it. Anyway, very cool. And all right, so This is, like a test and a voice test and so forth. The last time I was speaking, Marilyn said, "You're too slow and we can't hear you." So you need to turn up the volume, however you do that, so that you modulate better over the air that's going into Facebook. So this has been an exercise on, the audio. So this is the audio. And I'm about 10 inches away. And I mean, this thing can pick up, breathing. So microphone is extremely sensitive. So you don't have to have your face in the microphone like this. You can, but you don't have to. You can be back this far away, which you can see from the screen. I can aim it this way. It's like aiming an X-ray machine at you. Yeah, there it is. The microphone is like, zoom. You can turn down the background noise. Banderas. She's got a big mouth. So I've been told I have a big mouth. Anyway, so let's fold this down. And then I have to get my hand in the way of this thing because so now you can see full screen. See? They're talking back here. But, instead of having music in the background, I got the Fox News station. Rebroadcasting the network is I couldn't actually plug it in. The software will reject any kind of live broadcast. But I got it up on a TV up here on the top. This looks like it's a little crooked. There, that's better. See, now it's lined up in parallel. I'm very anal about having things, line up. Because it's a wide angle, this has to be a little tilted for it to appear squared off with the top. See, because I set the camera. There we go. Whoops. There we go. That's perfect. See, that way you got an even strip of light behind there. And of course, we can adjust the light behind because I don't need an awful lot of light in here. So I turn it down, and then the things that require brightness, like this right here. The clock in the background. Whoops. Oh, the microphone's in the way. See, here's the clock. There we go. So it's now 20 to 18 to 1. And I've been broadcasting here 1 hour and 8 minutes. I don't know how many people are left. But I appreciate you, participating in the test with me. The Roadcaster Pro 2, Roman number 2, can accept. It can. I've got it connected. I didn't actually connect it today, but I have a Bluetooth connection between my iPhone and. I should bring a mirror in here so you can see I have a mirror. I got Marilyn's mirror. So I can use a mirror. And you can see. Yeah, perfect. I can hold it up. And this is. There you go. See, there's the Votecaster. You see the thing? Boo. So these. I can. Hey! There you go. Yeah, I got some exciting applause. There we go. And you got some sound buttons here. We got crickets, if we need crickets. And that'll be our closing tune. There you go. So we'll end on that bright note. So we'll catch you, tomorrow. I'll be back on tomorrow. At the same time, 11 o'clock, 11:30. Come on back. Invite your friends.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. My firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, hundreds of people with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them. We have local offices throughout the U.S., and there is no risk to you.